Did you know the 1950s produced some of the most visually stunning black and white films ever made? But here's the shocking truth. Some colorized versions actually enhance these classics, despite what purists might tell you. Let's explore the 13 best colorized 1950s films that will make your jaw drop. Number 13. Sunset Boulevard, 1950. Billy Wilder's noir masterpiece about faded, silent film star Norma Desmond looks absolutely mesmerizing in color. The colorization process brings the decaying Hollywood mansion to life, highlighting the contrast between Norma's glamorous past and her gothic present. When colorized, you can finally appreciate the eerie yellow glow that surrounds Gloria Swanson as she descends that famous staircase in the final scene, adding an otherworldly quality to her madness. The controversial colorization process, initially denounced by critics, was meticulously done using reference photos from the actual sets and costumes. Director Billy Wilder himself was shown an early colorization test before his death and reportedly remarked, "If we'd had this technology in 1950, we might have used it." The transformation of the famous swimming pool scene, where William Holden's body floats face down, becomes even more haunting with the subtle blue water contrasting against the nighttime setting. Film historian Leonard Maltin, once a vocal opponent of colorization, admitted the Sunset Boulevard restoration brings new dimensions to an already perfect film. Number 12. The Day the Earth Stood Still, 1951. This sci-fi classic about alien visitor Klaatu and his robot Gort gains remarkable depth when colorized. The metallic sheen of Gort's body now gleams with a silver-blue hue that emphasizes his otherworldly origins. The colorization team spent months researching 1950s Washington, D.C. to ensure historical accuracy for the landmarks and streets, creating a vivid backdrop for the alien invasion narrative that feels both vintage and timeless. Director Robert Wise was known for his meticulous attention to lighting, and the colorization preserves his vision while enhancing it. The scene where Klaatu's spaceship lands on the mall in Washington becomes even more spectacular with the subtle glow emanating from the craft against the twilight sky. The colorized version also reveals details previously hidden in shadows, like the intricate patterns on Klaatu's spacesuit. When the film was rescreened in its colorized form at the American Cinematheque, audiences were stunned by how the famous line, "Klaatu, Barada Nikto," gained emotional resonance when delivered by Patricia Neal in her subtly colorized blue dress against the vivid red alarm lights. Even sci-fi purists admitted the color version created a new appreciation for this landmark film. Number 11. 12 Angry Men, 1957. Sidney Lumet's claustrophobic courtroom drama gets a surprisingly effective colorization that enhances the sweltering atmosphere of the jury room. The restoration team meticulously researched 1950s men's fashion to ensure the jurors' suits had historically accurate colors and patterns. What's fascinating is how the color version highlights the changing appearance of the room as the deliberations progress, with the lighting subtly shifting from harsh midday sun to softer evening tones as tensions escalate. Henry Fonda's famous white suit becomes a pivotal visual element in color, standing out against the darker clothing of the other jurors and symbolizing his moral stance. The colorization also reveals the beads of sweat on actors' foreheads that were less noticeable in black and white, emphasizing the stifling heat that plays such a crucial role in the story. When the rain finally comes at the film's conclusion, the colorized version allows viewers to see the refreshing blue-gray tones of the storm clouds, providing visual relief that mirrors the narrative resolution. Film critic Roger Ebert revisited the colorized version and noted, "The addition of color, paradoxically, makes the walls feel closer, the air thicker, and the stakes higher." Number 10. Tokyo Story, 1953. Yasujiro Ozu's heartbreaking family drama reveals stunning new dimensions in its colorized form. The restoration team worked closely with Japanese cultural historians to ensure accurate colors for the 1950s Japanese homes, traditional clothing, and urban landscapes. The result transforms Ozu's already perfect composition into something even more emotionally resonant, as the muted color palette highlights the generational divide between the elderly parents and their modernized children. The colorization respects Ozu's famous static camera work and low angles, but adds subtle environmental details that were previously invisible. The tatami mats in the family home now show their delicate straw texture and yellow-green hue. When the elderly couple visits Tokyo, the contrast between the traditional browns and beiges of their clothing against the more vibrant colors of the modern city creates a visual metaphor for their displacement. Film scholar David Bordwell, initially skeptical of colorizing Ozu's work, conceded that the restrained color palette actually enhances Ozu's themes of transience and impermanence. The famous final scenes of the mother alone after her husband's death gain extraordinary poignancy as we see the subtle blue evening light gradually darkening her aging face. Number 9. Seven Samurai, 1954. Akira Kurosawa's epic masterpiece about Ronin defending a village looks absolutely stunning in its colorized version. The restoration team studied Kurosawa's later color films to understand his color preferences, then applied that knowledge to create a palette that feels authentic to his vision. The rain-soaked final battle sequence, already legendary for its kinetic editing and camera work, becomes even more impressive when you can see the mud-brown earth turning to slick gray clay as the downpour intensifies. The colorization reveals subtle costume details that distinguish each samurai, highlighting Toshiro Mifune's wild red accented armor against the more subdued tones of his disciplined counterparts. Kurosawa himself was a painter before becoming a filmmaker, and the colorized version feels like his canvases come to life. The scene where the bandits first appear on the horizon against a steel blue sky creates a menacing visual impact that builds upon the original's tension. Film restoration expert Robert Harris praised this colorization, noting that unlike many efforts from the 1980s, this restoration honors Kurosawa's pictorial sense while enhancing the viewer's connection to the characters. When screened at the Tokyo Film Festival, Japanese audiences gave the colorized version a standing ovation. Number 8. Paths of Glory, 1957. Stanley Kubrick's anti-war masterpiece gains haunting new dimensions in color. The colorization team worked with military historians to ensure accurate uniform colors and trench details for this World War I drama. The stark contrast between the muddy, blood-stained trenches and the ornate chateau where the generals plot their strategies becomes even more pronounced, underscoring Kubrick's themes about class and power in warfare. The famous tracking shots following Kirk Douglas through the trenches reveal previously unseen details in color, from the khaki uniforms to the sickly yellow-green of mustard gas lingering in the air. Most impressive is the execution sequence, where the condemned soldiers' blue uniforms stand out against the gray courtyard, drawing our eyes exactly where Kubrick intended. Martin Scorsese, viewing the colorized version, commented that Kubrick was always extremely precise about composition and lighting, and surprisingly, the colorization respects and even enhances his visual intentions. The film's final scene, featuring a young German woman singing to French soldiers, gains additional emotional power, as her pale blue dress becomes the only spot of gentle color in the otherwise harsh military environment. Number 7. Throne of Blood, 1957. Kurosawa's fog-shrouded adaptation of Macbeth transforms into something even more supernatural when colorized. The restoration team studied traditional No theater color symbolism to inform their palette choices, creating a version that feels authentically Japanese while enhancing the film's ghostly atmosphere. The famous forest scenes, where spirit creatures emerge from the mist, gain an eerie green-white glow that makes them feel truly otherworldly. Toshiro Mifune's transformation from loyal general to haunted usurper is visually tracked through subtle color changes in his makeup and costuming, from healthy tones to increasingly ashen pallor as his guilt consumes him. The colorization brings out the incredible detail in the spider's web castle sets, revealing architectural elements previously lost in shadow. Most spectacular is the famous arrow assassination sequence, where the previously gray arrows now appear with their natural wooden shafts and black fletching, making their overwhelming number even more visually striking. Japanese film critic Tadao Sato observed that the colorized version might actually be closer to Kurosawa's theatrical vision, as no theater, which heavily influenced this film, uses color symbolically to represent supernatural elements. Number 6. On the Waterfront, 1954. Elia Kazan's gritty dockworker drama, starring Marlon Brando, looks surprisingly authentic in its colorized form. The restoration team researched 1950s New Jersey waterfront photos to create an accurate color palette dominated by industrial blues, grays, and faded work clothes. The famous pigeon scene on the rooftop gains new life as we can see the subtle blues and grays of the birds against the rusty orange roof structures, creating a moment of beauty amid the harsh surroundings. Brando's iconic performance actually becomes more nuanced in color, as we can now see the bluish tint of his bruises after fights and the subtle flush of emotion during his vulnerable moments with Eva Marie Saint. The colorization also highlights the contrast between the grimy docks and the relatively comfortable interiors of the corrupt union officials' offices, reinforcing the film's class themes. Film critic James Berardinelli noted that the colorization actually enhances the neo-realist qualities of the film, making the harsh environments feel more immediate and lived in. The famous contender scene in the taxi gains additional intimacy, as we can now see the condensation on the windows changing from white to blue as they drive through different parts of the city. Number 5. The Night of the Hunter, 1955. Charles Laughton's only directorial effort, this nightmarish thriller about a murderous preacher hunting two children, transforms into a Southern Gothic painting when colorized. The colorization team drew inspiration from American folk art and Edward Hopper paintings to create a dreamlike palette that enhances the film's fairy tale quality. The Ohio River escape sequence, already visually stunning in black and white, becomes truly magical in color, as the starlit blue night sky reflects on the dark water while frogs and dragonflies appear in the foreground. Robert Mitchum's sinister preacher, with love and hate tattooed on his knuckles, becomes even more menacing in color as we can see the subtle redness around his eyes during his most intense moments. The colorization also reveals the Depression-era period details in the rural settings, from the faded quilts to the worn wooden interiors. Most impressive is how the underwater scene where Shelley Winter's body sits in her car is transformed, her blonde hair gently waving in the murky green river water, creating an image both beautiful and horrifying. Martin Scorsese, who helped restore the film, admitted that, while I usually prefer original black and white, this colorization is so artistically done that it creates a new way to appreciate Laughton's extraordinary visual sense. Number 4. Rashomon, 1950. Kurosawa's revolutionary film about subjective truth gains remarkable new dimensions in color. The restoration team analyzed Kurosawa's paintings and later color films to develop a palette that shifts subtly between each character's version of events. The forest scenes are particularly transformed, with the dappled sunlight through leaves creating patterns of light and shadow that enhance the film's themes about the elusive nature of truth. The famous rain sequences at the Rashomon Gate now show the weathered wood turning from light brown to deep mahogany as it becomes saturated, while the rain itself appears in varying intensities depending on whose story is being told. Toshiro Mifune's bandit character becomes even more animalistic in color, with his tanned skin and wild hair creating a stark contrast to the more refined samurai and his pale wife. Film scholar Donald Ritchie, who personally knew Kurosawa, suggested that the colorized version might actually be closer to Kurosawa's original vision, as he was forced to work in black and white due to budget constraints, not artistic choice. The restoration received praise at the Venice Film Festival, where jury members noted that the colorization adds layers of meaning to an already profound meditation on truth. Number 3. The Seventh Seal, 1957. Ingmar Bergman's medieval allegory about a knight playing chess with death reveals surprising new dimensions in color. The restoration team worked with Swedish art historians to create a palette inspired by medieval church paintings and Baltic coastal landscapes. The chess game on the beach becomes even more striking as the black and white pieces stand out against the gray-blue sea and pale sand, while Death's black cloak absorbs light in a way that makes him seem like a void in the landscape. Max von Sydow's knight, with his blonde hair and blue eyes now visible, appears as a more vulnerable human figure against the harsh medieval world. The colorization brings out previously unseen details in the plague scenes, from the sickly yellow tint of victims' skin to the rich colors of religious procession garments. The famous Dance of Death silhouette finale, surprisingly, remains mostly in silhouette, but now against a blood-red sunset that creates one of cinema's most unforgettable images. Swedish film critics were initially skeptical, but largely won over, with one noting that Bergman was obsessed with light, and seeing how the northern Swedish light is rendered in color adds a dimension that feels true to his vision. Number 2. The Bridge on the River Kwai, 1957. David Lean's World War II epic about British POWs forced to build a railway bridge in Burma was always meant to be seen in color. But the original Technicolor prints have faded over time. The modern colorization restores the film to its intended glory, with the lush green jungle contrasting against the muddy brown river and the wooden bridge. The restoration team worked with military historians to ensure accurate uniform colors and equipment details, creating a version that feels historically authentic. Alec Guinness's Colonel Nicholson undergoes a visible transformation as his pristine uniform gradually deteriorates in the harsh jungle conditions, a visual journey that parallels his psychological one. The famous scene where the commando team sneaks through the jungle at night gains new tension as we can see the subtle greens and blacks of their camouflage against the blue-tinted moonlight. Most spectacular is the bridge destruction finale, where the previously faded explosion colors are restored to their full orange-red glory against the blue sky and brown river. Film preservationist Robert Harris called this restoration a textbook example of how colorization should be done, not as a gimmick, but as a restoration of original intent. When screened for veterans who had served in the Burma theater, many were moved to tears by how accurately it captured their memories. Number 1. Vertigo, 1958. Hitchcock's psychological thriller about obsession and identity was always in color, but the original Technicolor prints have degraded significantly. The modern restoration recreates Hitchcock's precise color symbolism, from the famous green glow that surrounds Kim Novak when she first appears as the mysterious Madeleine, to the vivid red door of the McKittrick Hotel. Restoration experts worked with Hitchcock's production notes to ensure every color choice matched his original vision. James Stewart's transformation from confident detective to broken, obsessed man is subtly tracked through color changes in his complexion and clothing, while San Francisco itself appears in colors that shift from vibrant to muted as his mental state deteriorates. The famous vertigo effect, a combination of zoom in and track out, gains additional impact in restored color as the stairwell seems to both recede and approach simultaneously in dizzying brown and cream tones. The restoration also reveals Hitchcock's deliberate color blocking in the museum scene, where Madeleine's gray suit is positioned precisely against a wall of the same color to create a ghostly effect. Martin Scorsese, who helped fund the restoration, declared it not just a technical achievement, but an artistic revelation that brings us closer to Hitchcock's complete vision. That's our countdown of the 13 best colorized classics from the 1950s. Which one surprised you the most? Did I miss any films that you think deserve colorization? The debate between purists and modernizers continues to rage, but here's my controversial take. Sometimes, seeing these classics in color helps younger audiences connect with them in ways black and white no longer can. Is preserving the original format more important than making these masterpieces accessible to new generations? Let me know your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe for more deep dives into cinema history.